Hello everyone, welcome to the Cleveland Sports Show. We have another edition, another week, which means we have another episode for you of our very beloved Cleveland Sports Show. Lots of basketball action this week for us. Also want to get you updated on some Premier League action, as well as Logan and I's reaction to the most recent scores in the NFL. We have our Super Bowl contenders. We're going to get a little more into that as well once Logan joins us. As I mentioned, Cavs on topic for this week as well. But before we get to any of that, it's time for our intro. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna of NordoniaHills.News, and the Cleveland Sports Show starts right now. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. I am your host, Darius Sethna, wherever you're watching this, on NordoniaHills.News, on Twitter, on SoundCloud, on Spotify, YouTube. I know that we have the Cleveland Sports Show now on NordoniaHills.News' YouTube page, so that's awesome, another source for you guys to have it. Welcome, wherever you may be listening, welcome to our Cleveland Sports Show, 95th edition, if I'm not mistaken. We're getting close to the 100th episode and our very special countdown. So now it's time to begin our podcast. So let's start it with our sports fact of the week. You know how we do it here at the Cleveland Sports Show. Now, today is January 29th, 2021, and we actually have a very interesting sports fact. We're going to go into some baseball history for you. And on this day, January 29th, all the way back in 1936, the first players were elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. First ever players to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. We have Ty Cobb, who spent 22 seasons with the Detroit Tigers. The last of those 16 seasons, last 6 of those 22 seasons, were him serving as the team's manager. Other one, infamous Babe Ruth. How could we not say the name Babe Ruth and synonymous with baseball? We all know the story of Babe Ruth, Yankees legend. Our next player is Honus Wagner, and if you're a Pittsburgh fan, sorry about that Steelers loss, but guess what? Honus Wagner was the first Pittsburgh Pirate to be elected into the Hall of Fame. He played from 1897 to 1917 almost entirely for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our next player who was inducted in 1936 was Christy Mathewson. Mathewson played 17 seasons with the New York Giants. Our last, but certainly not least, last player, Walter Johnson, who was a right-handed pitcher for the Washington Senators from 1907 to 1927. So you have that 20-year span there of Walter Johnson in Washington. So all those players, again, the list, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson, the first players to be elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and that was on January 29th of 1936. That was an awesome stat. I did not know that. I hope you learned something, as I did as well. Ladies and gentlemen, before Logan comes to talk with us about basketball and NFL updates, we need to get you caught up on what's going on with the Premier League, because it is still as competitive as you would imagine it to be. Overall standings, let's get you caught up with that. Manchester City in first place. They have 41 points on the season, 12 wins, 5 draws, 2 losses. And in second place is their rival Manchester United. 2 Manchester teams, both the best in the Premier League. Doesn't get any spicier than that, ladies and gentlemen. 40 points for Manchester United, 12 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses for them. Leicester City comes in at third place with 39 points. They have 12 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. For Liverpool, 4, actually, no pun intended, they're in fourth place. In 20 matches played, Liverpool with 10 wins, 7 draws, 3 losses for a combined 37 points. And then West Ham is in 5th place. They have 10 wins, 5 draws, 5 losses for 35 points. So, ladies and gentlemen, the difference between 1st place and all the way to 5th place is only 6 points. Ladies and gentlemen, this is getting extremely competitive. And match day 21 of 38 continues this weekend, all you soccer fans out there. Let's get the list for you of Premier League games going on this weekend. Everton will be taking on Newcastle tomorrow. The party starts at 7:30 in the morning. Also, Crystal Palace going up against the Wolves tomorrow at 10 a.m. Manchester City taking on Sheffield United at that same time. Also, tomorrow at 10 a.m., West Brom going up against Fulham. Tomorrow at 12:30, Arsenal taking on Manchester United. And at 3 p.m., we have Southampton going up against Aston Villa. Chelsea will take on Burnley on Sunday at 7 a.m. Leicester City will face off against Leeds United at 9 a.m. on Sunday. West Ham taking on Liverpool at 11:30 a.m. on this Sunday. And then finally, the last match of match day 21 will be at 2:15 on Sunday. Brighton going up against Tottenham Hotspur. Overall stats for the Premier League, Mohamed Salah stays in 1st place right now. 13 goals for Salah, the Liverpool forward. Harry Kane and Son Heung-min, 2 of them teammates for Tottenham Hotspur, are tied for 2nd, each of them with 12 goals on the season so far. Bruno Fernandes, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Jamie Vardy come in at 3rd place, all tied for 3rd place, each of those players with 11 goals on the season. Assists leader, Harry Kane and Kevin De Bruyne are the only 2 players in the Premier League right now who have the double-digit assist tally to their name. Harry Kane leads De Bruyne by 1, Kane with 11 assists, De Bruyne with 10 assists on the season. Jack Grealish of Aston Villa with 8 assists, and then Bruno Fernandes comes in at 4th place with 7 assists. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bring in Logan Purcell to our podcast, and here he is. And Logan, first and foremost, happy Friday. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us this week for another episode of our podcast.
Of course.
Yeah, so wanted to get into some stuff. First, Logan, we're going to talk some Cavs basketball, some NBA standings here. So overall, Logan, let's talk about our beloved Cleveland Cavaliers first. Right now, they're 9-9. We talked about they had a great pair of victories against the Brooklyn Nets. However, had a very rough game after the 24th. Cavs were in Boston for a matchup with the Celtics, and it was definitely, for all you historians out there, I'm sure you know what the Boston Massacre was. Well, we had a reenactment of that at the TD Garden this past Sunday when the Cavs went to face the Celtics. I mean, Cavs were embarrassed, Logan. 141-103. Cavs were outscored by 14 alone in the 3rd quarter and were outscored by 17 in the 1st quarter. After the 1st quarter, Logan, the score of this game was 38-21. Chetty Osman only with 12 points. Larry Nance Jr. just finished with 2 points in 13 minutes. Andre Drummond, 11 points. It's just no one scored more than 13 points in this game, Logan. Let's talk about this game against Boston first. We're going to get into the LeBron return and all that. But specifically from this Celtics game, Logan, were you frustrated seeing the way the Cavs played, especially having come off those 2 big wins? Were you really annoyed with how they were playing?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely found it pretty frustrating about how quickly the Cavs went down and just kind of, if you look at the second half of that game, just how they kind of gave up. It seemed like they didn't really, fight that entire second half of the game. I mean, you look at the numbers in the minutes. Colin Sexton, who is by far the best player on the Cavs team, are playing the best level, in my opinion, right alongside Andre Drummond, played 16 minutes in that game. And if you're talking about, we were talking about a leader of this team. You can't have a guy, regardless of how much you're down. I get injuries and durability and things like that, but you can't have your locker room guy playing 16 minutes in a game.
Do you think that falls on Bickerstaff, though? I mean, I
do. I do, yeah. I think that was entirely on Bickerstaff, the fact that they weren't able to get them in more. And I think that, it wouldn't have been a massacre as it was, and I think they would have maybe held on to a little bit more dignity than they did, in my opinion.
Yeah, but, Celtics made some history too, Logan. Here's this. Jaylen Brown, 33 points in 19 minutes. The fastest a player has scored that many points in that small amount of time. Logan, I'm looking at this Celtics team. Jason Tatum's back now. They did lose their most recent game in San Antonio by 4. But, Logan, in terms of Boston competing for even an Eastern Conference chance to compete in the conference finals, how much of a chance do you give them? They play the Lakers tomorrow, actually. But overall, I wanted to get your thoughts on what Boston can do when healthy.
I think Boston, even, assuming, we saw them without Tatum for, a good couple weeks. And,
yeah.
Even assuming they didn't have, either Tatum, I think Brown, in my opinion, as of right now, is a bigger factor in the games than Jason Tatum is. And that appears to be the case. But if I had to, tell you where the Celtics are right now, I think that they have, just as good of a chance to get out of the East as the Philadelphia 76ers, as the Brooklyn Nets. I think they have as good of a chance as anybody in that entire conference.
Yeah, and, with Brooklyn now not as great defensively as they were in the past, I'll ask you one more question about the Celtics overall, Logan. We've heard a lot of debate about, who's better, who's really the face of the franchise now. Is it Tatum or is it Brown? What's your take? Who is really the true best player and true face of the Celtics?
Well, I break it down like this. You're asking two different questions right there. Who's the face and who's the best player? Because those are two completely different things. Because, you could go out right now, and in my opinion, with the Clippers, Kawhi is easily the face of the franchise, but playing this season, it's Paul George is the best player. For the Cavs, it's the same idea. Or, the Celtics, it's the same exact idea. Mm-hmm. I think Tatum is the key to that franchise, former number 3 overall draft pick.
Yeah.
One of the guys that, was looked at as one of the most improved players last year. But I think Jaylen Brown is the most fundamental, probably the best player on that team right now.
Yeah, that is definitely a great way to break it down, Logan. Let's get back to the Cavs overall. So we talked about that game in Boston, but then they came home the next night. LeBron's return. Lakers came to Cleveland to face the Cavs at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And you were talking about, Logan, how the Cavs quit against Boston. That was not the case against these LA Lakers. Lakers had to pull this one out from a tight one. LeBron had a 46-point outing, his second game as a Laker in Cleveland. 46 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, all in 38 minutes. By far the leading scorer. The next highest was Anthony Davis, only had 17. So Anthony Davis didn't, have to score 30 for the Lakers to win this one. But I look at the Cavs, and I saw balance in this game, Logan. Cedi Osman, 20 points. Andre Drummond, 25 points, the leading scorer. Colin Sexton with 17. I was a little disappointed with how Jared Allen played. He only had 6 points in 29 minutes. But Darius Garland came off the bench, was a spark for JB Bickerstaff. Now we're seeing Garland back in the starting lineup. And I definitely thought if Larry Nance Jr. played, Logan, I feel like this game could have had a different result. What was your takeaway on this Cavs-Lakers matchup and LeBron's return?
Well, I had a couple takeaways from this one. From the offensive standpoint, I think you hit the bull in the head with that one. I think it was a great offensive show. Balanced wise, like I mentioned before, we've seen a lot of Colin Sexton and Andre Drummond. It hasn't been, we didn't see, Cedi Osman. We haven't seen him drop 20 a night, like he did against the Lakers a couple nights ago. So I give him a lot of credit there, and I think we saw a lot more balance with the Cavs offense than we usually do. But on the flip side of that, I think that there's a lot of improvement, and I think Colin Sexton just didn't have a good game.
Yeah.
You think of the 17 points, but he also shot 6 of 17 from the field,
and only 6 assists as well.
Yeah, and I just think that he needs to be a bit more of a facilitator, and I think that if Larry Nance it would have been interesting. But I think that that's the next step for Colin Sexton, is becoming a better facilitator.
Yeah, certainly. This was definitely a very interesting game. Lakers 10 of 32 from 3. Cavs 9 for 21. Free throws. Cavs shot 86% from the line, Logan. They were great. However, they did have 17 turnovers in that game against the Lakers. However, Logan, two losses in a row, no worries for the Cleveland Cavaliers because they bounced back against the Detroit Pistons rather emphatically. It was a pretty tight first half this past Wednesday when the Pistons came to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, but in the third quarter, Cavs really pulled away. They outscored Detroit 36-26 in the third, and then in the fourth quarter, outscored Detroit by 7 to get a 15-point victory. An 122-107 victory for the Cavs, which got them to the 500 mark. As of right now, they are 9-9. For the Cavs, some stats, no one had to score more than 30. Colin Sexton at 29, Andre Drummond with 23, Darius Garland, who I mentioned was in the starting lineup, scored 14 points in 31 minutes. Taurean Prince had a solid night as well this past Wednesday, Logan. He had 16 points, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds, all in 30 minutes. You know, Logan, to me, we know, yes, the Pistons are not a good basketball team. So, with that being said, do you think that this was that's the Cavs really were expected to win this game, or do you think that this was actually a good momentum booster for the Cavs?
Well, I think in the NBA and any professional sports, you gotta take them as you get them. You gotta go in with the mindset that you're gonna win the game. Think of all the great players that we've ever heard of. It's always you go in. You heard Paul Pierce a few years ago talking about how he thought he was the best player of all time.
Yeah,
and that's what makes him. It's a mindset, and you go into a game, you got to think you're gonna win, and that's why the greats win. But I think any win that they can get is momentum booster, but I think that this one was a very big momentum booster for Colin Sexton. Again, he's the face of the franchise, and I think that a 10 of 14 shot field goal shooting was a very nice upside compared to the 6 of 17 we saw the game before.
Yeah, Colin Sexton certainly was fantastic, as you mentioned, Logan. Let's look on the other side of things for this game. The Detroit Pistons. Jeremy Grant turned down a big contract in Denver to sign with Detroit and kind of, elevate his game. Wayne Ellington's there. You still have Derrick Rose, DeLon Wright, a former Toronto Raptor and Dallas Maverick, who's a solid point guard. Josh Jackson is there. You have Mikhailuk, who's a quality shooter. Mason Plumlee on the team. So, to me, Logan, I thought the Pistons would be a little bit better than they are right now. They did have a win against the Lakers last night, beat Los Angeles by 15, actually. So right now they're 5-14. But with the roster they had, Logan, and the way Jeremy Grant had been playing, did you expect the Pistons to be better, or is this kind of what you expected from them?
Well, I can't say that I'm exactly surprised by the 5-14 record that they have into the season.
Yeah.
But I will say that they have some room to improve. They've got a lot of young pieces, and I think that Jeremy Grant right now is the face of that franchise, like Colin Sexton is for the Cavs. Mm-hmm. And I think that they've got a lot of chance to continue to improve. So I can't say that I'm surprised, but I think that they've got a lot of upside.
Yeah, so I love seeing Derrick Rose still being able to contribute. That's really my takeaway from the Detroit Pistons so far. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get you your schedule for the Cleveland Cavaliers updated here. Cavs in New York City tonight at Madison Square Garden for a matchup against the Knicks. After this game, Cavs will go over to Minneapolis at the Target Center. They'll face off against the Timberwolves on Sunday at 8 p.m. Cavs will then have another look at the Timberwolves, this time at home on Monday, 8 p.m. from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. So Cavs with a back-to-back against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Wednesday, they'll face the Clippers in Cleveland. Kawhi and company, hopefully all healthy, will come to Cleveland to take on the Cavs. And then next Friday, Bucks will be in town. Logan, overall, Cavs have some rough opponents that they're going to be going up against. They're going to have some challenging games. Knicks are showing improvement. Clippers are going to be there this upcoming Wednesday. Bucks, obviously, for two nights in a row. Then the Cavs are going on a West Coast trip where, nothing is guaranteed in the West. And if you're going to want to win in the West, you're going to have to bring everything. So what are you looking for in the Cavs in these next few games? Any specifics on what you want to see them do better?
Yeah, well, I was, looking at the numbers from the past couple games, and one thing that kind of surprised me was the amount of turnovers that Colin Sexton has.
Yeah.
And, I understand that he's a key factor. He's a main ball handler for that team, but in the same token, as an elite ball handler, you got to learn that you can't turn the ball over like that. 5 turnovers against, I believe it was Detroit. It was a good win and all, but 5 turnovers is a lot of turnovers.
Yeah.
So I think that he's got to have to learn that. I think I'm excited to see if he's going to figure that out, and if Jamie Bickerstaff will find a better system for him to maybe excel in a little bit more and be able to be the true facilitator for that team.
And overall, let's get the standings right now. Let's start in the Western Conference. Utah on a 10-game winning streak. They are first place now officially in the Western Conference. They're 14-4. The Clippers come in at second place, 14-5. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Lakers have dropped their last 2 games. We mentioned they lost last night in Detroit. 2 nights ago on Wednesday, they fell to the Sixers in Philadelphia. Nuggets in 4th place, Spurs in 5th place. The young, talented Spurs with DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge leading the way. They're 10-8. They've won their last 2. Let's go to the Western Conference, Eastern Conference top 5. 76ers in first place. They're 6-4 in their last 10. 13-6 overall in the season. Milwaukee comes in at second place with an 11-6 record, 7-3 in their last 10. Indiana comes in at third, playing 500 their last 10 games, and Nets come in at fourth place. They've won their last 3 after those rough losses in Cleveland, so looks like something might be taking shape there in Brooklyn. And then we mentioned the Celtics are in 5th place, 10-7 on the season. FYI, ladies and gentlemen, Cavs in 6th place in the Eastern Conference. They're 9-9, 5-5 in their last 10. They're 3-5 on the road, but 6-4 at home. So if the playoffs were to start today, the Cavs would face the Pacers in the first round. The Pacers would hold home court in Indianapolis for that series. So, Logan, overall, before we get to our next topic in NFL discussion, what are your surprises of the standing so far? I like asking you this, kind of seeing what your perspectives are week by week. We obviously have Utah in the 1st seed, but San Antonio's in the 5th seed in the West. And then Nets looking like, they're getting somewhere in terms of, winning games. They've won their last 3. So overall, what are your biggest surprises and disappointments in the league so far?
Well, for me, my biggest, upside surprise for the East is it's got to be Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at this team, a lot of people didn't like the move that, they had made.
Right.
They also saw some upside to it. You move in Oladipo and you get back, and a couple picks, and you get back Karis LeVert.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wasn't sure about that trade, but it seems to be working out. Now, an 11-7 clip, in 3rd in the East, I mean, that's a great kickoff to having Karis LeVert.
Right. Yeah.
Even though he hasn't played much, but still, or at all, I'm not even sure yet. But I think that is a lot to work with in the Eastern Conference, and I think that has to be my big good upside. But as for negatives, despite being short-handed, I still expected a lot out of the Heat this year, but they're 13th in the Eastern Conference at 6-12.
Yeah.
And to me, that is just absolutely abysmal. And that is unacceptable for, defending Eastern Conference champion to come out, 18 games into the season and to be 6-12.
Well, do you think that's because, Jimmy Butler has been out for quite some time, Jay Crowder's gone, so the team's really not the same at all right now. You've got guys like, Nick Strus coming in and kind of having to hold the fort down, so that's a lot to ask out of Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. Avery Bradley's also out. So, I mean, do you think that's a legit reason for the Heat to be in that spot? Because, I mean, with Jimmy Butler gone, that's the face of your team. So that's my take on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, to a degree, I completely agree with that statement. But at the same time, I mean, everybody talks about just Bam Adebayo like he's going to be an elite player in this league.
Yeah.
And to me, if you can't even bring your team close, you don't even have to be above 500, because I get Jimmy Butler's elite, But, if you can't even bring your team, alongside Tyler Hero, who is a very talented basketball player as a scorer and as a shooter, you've got defensive guys. I mean, this entire team is full of dogs.
Yeah.
This is basically just what the Clippers were supposed to be last year.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that if you can't bring your team within, I would say a game or two of being 500, that's just an issue to me. And that really concerns me because, we saw in the finals last year, Jimmy Butler did it all.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm really all that confident about this Heat team anymore.
So overall, Logan, wanted to get your final thoughts on this. Houston Rockets played the Portland Trail Blazers last night. Big win for Houston in that one. It came down to the wire. Rockets won by 3, 104-101. Blazers actually blew a 20-point first-half lead. Houston went up by as much as 11. Overall, just wanted to get your thoughts on that one, Logan. Two teams, Portland, Houston. Was this a bigger loss for the Blazers or a bigger win for the Rockets?
I think it's a huge loss for the Blazers, personally. I think that, the Blazers can't afford to lose games like this because, the Blazers are a great team, and they've got a lot of upside, but they have to be able to take these ones. I understand they got to take their lumps. Damian Lillard with a 30-point game, Gary Trent with 23, giving them some help. But, lacking, the scoring of C.J. McCollum is a big factor, but at the same time, you got to win these kinds of games against, well, to be completely honest, a team that doesn't seem like they're going to be able to do much in the West, if anything.
You really don't believe, even with Wall and Oladipo and Cousins, that the Rockets can make noise? I feel like they can be a decent 6th or 7th seed in the West.
Yeah. See, I agree, but to me, making noise, get into the second, third round and start making noise there. That's what making noise is to me, and I just can't. You look at the standings now, like we've already talked about. I mean, I can't really see them beating a Denver or Los Angeles. I can't even see them making that a series because at the end of the day, more than likely they're either going to be playing a Denver or a Utah or a team, one of those teams that has played at an elite level this year. So,
right.
I mean, I'd like to see them make the playoffs, but even then, I unless they make a 6 seed, I can't even see them matching up with any of the other teams in the West.
Yeah, Logan Purcell joining us, ladies and gentlemen, doing a phenomenal job as always. Logan, we're going to move from NBA to NFL, and guess what? We have our Super Bowl set up, ready to go. Not this Sunday, ladies and gentlemen, next Sunday, February 5th at 6:30 p.m. Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning champions, will look to defend their crown against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Logan, we'll start with the NFL Conference Championships, the Buccaneers taking on the Packers in the NFC. Buccaneers won this one 31-26. Overall, Tom Brady threw for 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did, however, have 3 interceptions. On the other side of things, Aaron Rodgers, 3 touchdowns as well, threw an interception, 33 for 48, 346 yards, Logan. Tampa Bay was up by 11 at the half, 21-10, but the Packers came roaring back and actually had some momentum. They scored 13 points in the third. However, Brady and company able to hold off the Buccaneers. So, Logan, I want to get your thoughts on this game because this was obviously a big win for Tampa Bay. However, it is also a monumental loss for the Packers. What are your overall thoughts on this game?
Well, I saw a few different things that, kind of interest me, but at the same time, it kind of just the proof that we've all known. It was just a matter of seeing it. I think, what was really undermined in this game was the greatness of Tom Brady. This guy has, over his over 20-year career, this is going to be his 7th Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And he got it done when it mattered again.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm personally, if I had to pick whether this was good Bucs or bad Packers, it's bad Packers. I think the Bucs had a great finish to that game, but I think the 4th and goal at the 7-yard line was a huge mistake called by Matt LaFleur late in the game. The decision to go for the field goal instead of trying to tie it down to 8. I think that was a monumental mistake. You have the best talent in the the NFL right now, Aaron Rodgers, and you're not going to give him the opportunity to go for it. But with the season on the line, the season that he led 13-3, number one in the NFC, you're not going to give the best quarterback in the undoubted MVP a chance to put the game away.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom that decision.
Well, Logan, speaking of Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers isn't getting any older, and, is this is possibly looking like a situation, maybe not to the degree, but a similar situation that Pittsburgh's going through right now. You have to make that decision. Is it maybe time to let go? Big Ben's getting old. Aaron Rodgers is clearly still playing well. So where do the Packers go from here, Logan? Do you maybe consider taking Aaron Rodgers away and starting a rebuilding process, or do you keep what you have and maybe add on to it?
Well, that's an interesting question because of the simple fact that, this team is 13-3. So, I can't imagine you take a team 13-3 and just decide, let's blow it up and rebuild.
Yeah.
I get he's 37, 38 years old, but at the same time, he's going to win another MVP award. So he might not be getting any younger, but he's not getting any worse either. It doesn't seem like he's digressing at all.
Yeah.
He's still got elite talents on that offense. I think the fact that they only handed it off to one of the most underrated running backs in the league, and Aaron Jones 6 times, to me is kind of pathetic. And it's not like he was a bum. He still ran for 4.5 yards to carry. He had 27 yards. But they have elite receivers. They have Devontae Adams. They have Alan Lazard. They have the new guy Robert Tanya on that team. They have a lot of pieces. It's just a matter of getting over that hump because they won the NFC Championship last year when they lost to that great 49ers defense.
Yeah.
I just don't. I can't see. I feel like this is one of those teams that is like one or two pieces away from getting over that hump and heading to the Super Bowl.
So, overall, Logan, 31-26, the final score. Tampa Bay defeats Green Bay by 5, and Tom Brady will be heading to his 7th Super Bowl. Let's look at the other side, Logan, the AFC Conference Championships. We were talking about, you were saying how if Kansas City had Patrick Mahomes, it would be a tight game. Logan, last week, that was not the case. Buffalo actually pulled ahead. This game was played at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. Bills pulled ahead 9-0. However, Kansas City came roaring in the second quarter. 21-3 was the second quarter score in favor of the Chiefs. Kansas City then packed 10 more points on the board, and it was kind of becoming blowout city. Buffalo puts 9 on the board. However, it was just all a little too late in the fourth quarter, and they lost this one by 14 points. Final score, Chiefs 38, Bills 24. Josh Allen, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, threw for 287 yards, 28 for 48. On the other side of things, Patrick Mahomes with a very efficient throwing performance, 29-38 for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. He was terrific. And overall, Logan, I'll ask the same question as I did for the last game. Overall takeaways, what did you see from this Bills-Chiefs game? Because we were expecting, if everyone was healthy, this would be down to the wire matchup. However, it was not. So what did you think about this?
Well, I think it's quite as simple as this right here. The Chiefs have the 2 most explosive offensive weapons outside of the quarterback position in the NFL. Tyreek Hill with 9 receptions for a $172 and a 71-yard reception tag along with that. And then his other, just okay tight end, Travis Kelce with 13 receptions, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He only dropped 2 passes. Both of them did, 4 combined. And to me, this is just a pure show of, this is what we're going to do. If you can stop us, you can. We'll give it credit, but you can't stop us. I think that this team they stood up and just said, we're not going to lose this game. And I got to start respecting the Chiefs now. I think that this team has truly proven that they're going to do their thing regardless of who thinks they can stop them and how hot a team is.
So we just talked about the Chiefs, Logan. Certainly excited to see them in the Super Bowl. Man, did they put on a show this past Sunday against Buffalo. But Buffalo, Josh Allen, we were talking about, is this guy a possible MVP candidate? He was certainly an MVP candidate, but was he going to take that next step and actually get to the MVP? Had an interception on Sunday, but where do the Bills go from here? Because, you obviously have Stephon Diggs and the future looks bright, but what do you think they possibly need to look for in this year's draft in order to get over a hump of like a Kansas City, or if the Browns get any better? What are the Bills going to need to do to stay competitive in the AFC?
I think they need two things. And I think these two things have got to be probably an edge rusher. They need somebody that can get inside and force the quarterback out of the pocket. I mean, you saw Mahomes. He seemingly stood in the pocket and just threw the football wherever he wanted, however he wanted. There was no issues. He didn't get any pressure. It didn't seem like he was really moving much. He kind of just got to sit there and do what he wanted, and that's why he was so accurate. Yeah. And then the other thing that I think that they could really desperately use is a running back. They need a true running game. I mean, Josh Allen is a very underrated runner. 7 carries, 88 yards on the night last Sunday. But, Devin Singletary was their leading rusher. He ran it 6 times for 17 yards for 2.8 yards to carry. And just that is unacceptable at a starting running back position in the NFL. So I think that they need to definitely queue up that position and get that figured out. But if they don't, I don't think they're going to be really even be able to compete against the Chiefs. Because to beat the Chiefs, you got to have a running game because you got to keep the ball in Mahomes' hands. And
this was definitely great analysis there of the Bills, Logan. Ladies and gentlemen, Super Bowl 55 next Sunday, February 7th at 6:30 p.m. Game will be from Tampa, Florida. This is going to be a great one. Tom Brady and the Chiefs against Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I was talking with a friend at my lunch table this week. You can't bet against the Chiefs, but then you also can't bet against Tom Brady. We'll get into predictions next week as we continue our hype for Super Bowl 55, so I won't do those now. I'll give you a week to, really sit down and ponder it, because this is really good. This is going to be tough for me to decide as well. And with that being said, Logan, that actually concludes our material for this week. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me. I really appreciate all of your insight. Love talking with you about basketball and football as well. Can't wait till we get started with when the Indians come back for baseball. That'll be great as well. But Logan, have a terrific weekend, and thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And ladies and gentlemen, you just heard me get off the phone with Logan, which means that it is time for us to conclude our episode. But first, you're probably wondering, Darius, that was the best podcast I've ever listened to. Oh my goodness, I need more of this because I'm addicted to your show now because that episode was so phenomenal. Well, guess what? I've got you covered, because if you're on NordoniaHills.News, you have some great news, because you can access my previous episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show on there as well. Go to the Contributors tab on NordoniaHills.News. My name is about the second or third one down. It's spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. Once you click on my name, you'll be able to see all my media work with NordoniaHills.News. All my podcast episodes and all my play-by-play broadcasts of Knights basketball on YouTube and NordoniaHills.News, all there for you. I also had a chance to write some articles over the summer as well. I wrote most recently an article in December about how the Cavs are preparing for have been preparing for their NBA season with all the coronavirus challenges that are being presented. You can also access all my work on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @NordoniaSports. My name is spelled DARAYUSSETHNA. From there, you'll be able to see all the same things, all the broadcasts, the podcast episodes, and links to the articles on NordoniaHills.News. I'm so happy to announce that the Cleveland Sports Show is on Spotify as well. So where you're on the go, wherever you are, just type in my name, spelled DARAYUSSETHNA, and you'll be able to listen to the Cleveland Sports Show wherever you are. Also happy to say The Cleveland Sports Show is now on Nordonia Hills News' YouTube page. So if you go to NordoniaHills.News' videos on YouTube, my podcast episodes will be on there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Darius Sethna saying thank you so much for all of your time this week. Appreciate you listening in for another episode of the Cleveland Sports Show. We're getting very close to number 100, the special 100th edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen. Logan and I will talk our predictions for the Super Bowl, and we'll get you more NBA updates and Premier League updates. Have a wonderful weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and go Cavs.